let's start with today's announcement, and match payments for the women's team. How important is that as a step forward for not just the club but the sport as a whole?
Well, it is that. It's a step forward. The real big steps have actually been taken over the last 3 or 4 years in making sure that the girls play in a proper professional environment and are given the infrastructure that the club has to offer in terms of top-level coaching, ensuring that proper medical cover and assistance, nutrition, conditioning, playing at the Totally Wicked Stadium. So, we've put the platform in place for that. Obviously it was Saints, Leeds, York, I suppose, that are the pioneers and really have invested in it over the last few years, but other clubs are now coming on board. Not enough, but they are. So it's becoming a more competitive environment. The girls are in demand, but I think more importantly, they're acting professionally, they're devoting time, they're devoting energy. They have to be paid, kind of commercially, but more importantly morally. I think that they have to be compensated for the efforts to reflect their own efforts and to reflect the level that they've attained. So, that's this step. It's kind of getting publicity because it's monetary. But the real heavy lifting, I think, has already been done over the last 3 or 4 years.
Is that where perhaps we've missed the message done in the past, that the medical insurance, the gym membership, the food preparation, all that, and now the money on top of it?
The coaching, we've got Matty Smith as their coach. I mean, he's can coach. Well, he does. He can coach the first team. He'll go on to be a very good coach. So we're making sure, they've got Craig Richards, Derek Hardman, Matty Smith. These are all very, very good coaches indeed, all working with the women, and a lot of backroom staff. So we've made sure that the platform and infrastructure is in place. Anybody, the local pub can go out and pay a few bob for girls to turn up. That's not what we're about. We want to make sure that the environment is right first, and as I say, that is the heavy lifting because it's not recognised. But there is a considerable cost, but that has to be done first before you start paying the girls, and this is the natural next step.
What we've seen in other sports in rugby union, clubs going to the wall and their women's team being cast asunder as well, with huge debts. How important is that St Helens and rugby league in general do this sustainable? You can't just throw money at something that's not sustainable. But it's also important that the women get their dues as well.
No, it is. Yeah, I mean, if you did firstly, kind of to date, it's been left to the clubs. We're talking about next steps. The game itself has to get much more professionally involved in it, and as we always do, look at the template of the NRL as to how they've done it over what period and the likes, and what level of investment is necessary. But at this point in time, we don't have the rules, the regulations, the minimum standards that the women's game deserves. And my own view is, if you're a Super League team, you should have to have it. You should have to ascribe a certain level of investment to it. In terms of it being loss-making, it's very easy just to look at your basic costs and say we've got no income, because we don't. It's minimal in terms of crowds, it's minimal in terms of sponsorship. But what we're doing is, improving our brand value. The fact that our girls play at Wembley and it's on national TV, it's on international TV, and the name of St Helens is very much prominent in that. And the fact that girls are becoming more interested in rugby league generally means that we're getting more girls coming along to watch the men's game. So, and the two should interconnect. So it's easy to dismiss it as a loss leader, and at this point in time, it is. But there are indirect revenues that people and value that people don't realise. And in the course of time, people will start to pay to watch. It will have its own broadcast value, that I'm pretty sure of. In the course of time, it does make good television already. We just don't have enough games or enough competitive games to make it to give it some traction for the broadcasters to ascribe a value to, and that has to be the next stage. The next stage we have to have is 12 Super League clubs, all with women who are paid to a degree, and the similar level of quality as with the men's game. We can only do so much as a club. We want to be a leader. We are a leader at the moment, but we want all clubs to do the same.
You mentioned minimum standards. Obviously, you mentioned the press conference. You've got the destiny of this stadium in your own hands. You can choose who plays here and what, but not every Super League club has that luxury in a sense. But how important is it that women's games are played at the stadium we associate with them? And we see this in the football in the Women's Super League, where Arsenal are just trying to push their games at the Emirates, but they play at a non-league stadium pretty much the rest of the time. How important is it that for the St Helens brand, for in a sense, that the women's games are played here where the men are? It's the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to us, and we will also always ensure that the girls do play here when we can, as long as it doesn't coincide with the men's game or whatever. But even then, we can shuffle it around, because again, it comes down to our brand. And our stadium is our own, and we want to see our stadium on the TV, and the more women's games that are on the TV, the better. I see what you mean regarding some clubs not owning the stadium, but it's still possible. It may not be for every game, but what you've got to ensure is if you can't, you do ensure that they play in a decent facility, not the local park, and certainly professional clubs should be doing that.
This, as you mentioned, it's a great growth area for the sport. How do we take advantage? Because obviously there's a massive interest in women's sport in general, the Lionesses and everything else. How do we in Rugby League not miss out on that boat?
Well, as I said, the next stage has got to be that we have a very competitive league. With 12 teams at the moment, we've got 3 who've taken the lead. We've got another 2 or 3 who are coming along, but we need it to be on a par with the men's game in terms of competition. That you don't know whether you're going to win next week or not, and once you get that, it starts to feed in itself in terms of crowd. It starts to feed in itself in terms of TV and other forms of media interest in terms of producing content. And when you've got content, you've got value. So it's there to be had. There's a clean slate. We've just seen within our own town and own area how it's taken off in a straight line over the last 3 or 4 years. We've taken on Jodie Cunningham. We're lucky in that regard. She's our captain, but she's now full-time with the club, and she's full-time not just playing. She's an ambassador. She's in our community. She's going around to schools. We've now got role models that girls in this town know who Jodie Cunningham is. They know who Emily Rogers, they know who Tara Jones is. So, going around to the schools and getting a greater level of interest in the game of rugby league in 50% of the population, which is female. And for them, as I say, 1, to play it, and 2, to come and watch it. But the game itself has to support it. It can't be left to individual clubs.
Finally, it must be pleasing that now you are starting to pay players their match fees, but prior to that there would have been interest in other clubs coming in for some of those big name players, but they've all stayed here at St Helens. They've all won another Challenge Cup and made history at Wembley, and they want to be part of this
we've been kind of very open with them as to our plan in terms of development in the years ahead, and why we didn't pay them last year when Leeds did, etc. And they've stayed true to us, because they do realise that where they may be missing a few quid in the pocket, it's more than made up with the treatment that we give them. When we went to Wembley, we made sure that they stayed at the Hilton next door, which we do when the men go down, treating them exactly the same. And they do realise that, they do appreciate it, and they know it's a little bit of a slow burner. And I do feel sorry for these girls, because these are the girls who really have put in the effort, really put in the time, monetarily not benefited from it, but the next generation will, the generation after that even more. But I think the good thing is that if the women's game does develop and become professional, there will be jobs for these girls in the sport. These are the brains of rugby league as well as the players of rugby league. So they see that the game itself does have a future, and that there could be opportunities for them in it.